That's cool, man.
Welcome back to the latest edition of the Comics Aficionados, and this is a Sunday stream. It's a old school comics and chill, and some of you may be asking, Wes, why are you streaming on Sunday instead of Saturday? What is an old school comics and chill? Well, this is what it is. Henry Breen is a diva, and basically he said, I can't stream on any day but Sunday. If you want me on the channel, you have to accommodate my schedule. So we change things up. The first Sunday of every month is an old school comics and chill. We talk about everything. We talk about old comics. We'll answer all of your questions try to answer all the questions that you put into the chat and all that good stuff. And so basically, Breen's a diva. We're trying to accommodate his schedule. He has a list of demands just to get him on the channel. I've been trying like hell to find him a pair of those Hulk gloves that are signed by Stan Lee just to keep him coming back. But that's the story. That's why we're here on a Sunday. Eric, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you for the build-up.
Absolutely. The critical diva himself, Henry Breen. Welcome to the channel. Doc, how you doing, buddy?
I am goddamn good.
Oh, yeah? You doing all right?
Yep.
So you weren't out too late then?
No, actually, I ended up staying in last night and just watching the Pens game. They were on the West Coast, so it was late, and it was very disappointing.
Nice. All right, Ash. I know that you were bidding on comics all night. I'm shocked you're still here.
I know, man. I'm shocked that Breen's still here. He's probably. I thought he'd be a pumpkin. And you must have done something to bribe him, because I know all about him being. I can't get him on a show to save my life. So you got to tell me what your secret bribe is.
Well, you have to tell him when you want to do the show, and then he will demand that you do it at another time that makes it completely does not match up with your schedule. And then when you accommodate him, then he makes his big demands. Normally, throw a couple true believers my way. Maybe some type of memorabilia signed by somebody important, and then he'll come on the show.
That's the problem here.
I don't either. You're a big time contributor to the show. People love it. When you're on the channel, you've actually got I think 3 of my 20 most viewed videos in the history of the channel.
Cool.
So,
you got to pay for talent.
We have to bribe Breen.
Absolutely. Like I said, he is a diva. And I see Josh is giving me the shout out for the American Nightmare. It's too bad that he fell to MJF last night in a big pay-per-view. But I'm a big fan of AEW. Ryan Wilson's already given up. I haven't given up. I'm a big fan of AEW. Did anyone else watch that? Or am I the only guy that likes the all elite wrestling?
I got bored with wrestling a while ago. I mean, I'll watch every so often if it's on, and I'm too lazy to change the channel. But I don't go out of my way to watch wrestling anymore, because anybody that I thought was any fun to watch is a lot of the wrestlers they're kind of boring these days.
Well, stay away from the main WWE product and stick to NXT and AEW.
Absolutely. NXT, AEW, and then there's a show on YouTube I watched that's called NWA Power. It's actually pretty funny. It's like watching an 80s or a 70s in studio wrestling show. It's actually pretty good.
The guy that used to be Damian Sandow on WWE's on there. I love that guy. I don't why he didn't get huge is beyond me.
What did I send the link? Not to. Let me send the link to Pele. He's watching the show, but he's not on the show. What the hell? Whoops.
You got some explaining to do.
So there it is. I sent it over. My thing's not going. So there's a lot of things that happen, within the comics industry this last week. Dan Didio's out at DC Comics. Bob Iger is out as the CEO of Disney. What else happened? Ta-Nehisi Coates is going to be off of Black Panther, probably Captain America as well. So lots of going on. If you have questions for the panel, make sure and put them in the chats, and we will definitely answer those. Ash, what were your thoughts on Dan Didio's firing?
First, it was elation. I was like, "Ding dong, the witch is dead." And then after that settled in for I was started reality. I was like, wait a second, we could actually get something worse. So now I'm in this weird phase of half excitement but half anxiety of like what's going to go on, and now it's just like the unknown. At least Dan Didio, you knew kind of what to expect. Now
All
we
right,
don't
so
know.
I'm getting information. It's trickling in from a couple of sources that I do have, and it sounds actually pretty good about the new direction and the people that are going to be controlling it. I can't divulge that yet because it's not being released, but there is a video tomorrow where Perch, who was down at Comics Pro, talks about some of the things that were. Let me turn that off until he gets his avatar up. And to talk to some of the rumblings at Comics Pro about maybe what's going to happen at DC Comics. And it sounds really interesting. I think you're going to enjoy that video. It will be up first thing tomorrow.
Well, I look forward to that.
Mm-hmm. That was really exciting. Breen, what is your thoughts on Donnie Coates, Ta-Nehisi Coates, being off of Black Panther soon?
Well, I haven't read anything he's written for a couple of years, so I understand it hasn't gotten any better. I'm guessing that maybe he got some kind of Hollywood deal or something that might take him out of comics.
I hope to God.
So wait, is he just off Black Panther, or is he off?
He's going to be
Cap
off
too?
Cap too. Well,
I've heard he's going to be off Cap. I've actually heard this like 4 months ago that he was going to be going off, and it's actually true because they announced the Black Panther thing, and it sounded like he was going to be off of Cap as well.
There's no way that would had to have been his choice.
yeah, they can't fire him.
There's no chance.
They can't fire him.
No, I missed it. Oh, okay, here I gotta address this one. From Paul's NYC, rumors going on again. Marvel is gonna buy DC. You think there's any truth to that? Absolutely not. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. It makes no sense. Disney acquired Marvel, for an IP farm for their movies, streaming, to fill out their theme parks and stuff. AT&T acquired Time Warner, which included DC, to get into the streaming game, get into the entertainment business. There's no way that they would buy all that when you have DC actually has a lot of original property, a lot of original ideas that they can translate into movies and streaming and things like that. There's no way they would acquire that so they could sell it to their main competitor. Pele, what would you say about the idea that Marvel is going to buy DC?
Well, if the money's right, I bet they would. I mean, I bet if the money's right, I bet Warner would sell it.
Well, it's not Warner; it's AT&T's now.
I know. AT&T would sell it via Warner, but yeah, I think that if the money's right, they do it. And I think that Disney, even though that they're crippled right now for as far as cash, they would probably like leverage everything that they have to do it to buy it. So I don't think it's going to happen. No way in hell it's going to happen. But it would be pretty damn funny. I mean, we could actually see a merging of the Marvel and DC universe.
You're taking the $1 million man. Everyone's got a price stance on it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a price. I mean, if it's literally, say $20 billion,
Oh, yeah, yes, that would be a good price.
But the thing is, AT&T won't sell the film rights, and Disney doesn't want to be in the publishing business in the first place. So that you have two things: one company that doesn't want to buy the thing that might be for sale, and the other one that doesn't want to sell the thing that the other one might want to buy.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to be competing on streaming
AT&T,
with Disney Plus and HBO Max.
AT&T right now is hurting for cash.
But
really, really bad.
So is Disney.
Well, Disney's got $85 billion in cash sitting,
and about $100 billion in debt.
Yeah, that's all right. That's not that bad. But the thing is that AT&T right now, that's got like $15 billion in debt and $250 billion in debt. I mean, $250 billion in debt and $25 billion in cash.
It's about 150 right now. I was just reading up for another segment.
Here's the thing.
It's crazy.
Here's the thing. Pele is right. Money talks. I mean, there's a price for everything. The kicker though is the buyer. Disney is not motivated to buy DC. There's a lot of other companies that would buy DC because of the value of the IP farm, but Disney already has a better, essentially, arguably better product than the DC. it doesn't make sense for them to go out of their way and buy essentially what they already have at that sort of value. Especially considering all the money that they've been forking out lately. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that they bought Marvel, but it was pretty recent that they bought Star Wars, and really, really recent that they bought Fox, putting all this money into the stream. Their attention is not looking going, let's buy our competition out, because when you think about it from Disney's point of view, is this going to make us money? And if you think about it, do you think Disney movies, like superhero movies, all of a sudden make more money because now they've got what boils down to normies, a couple extra superheroes that they can now make movies about? It really doesn't. But if you look,
it's a lot bigger than that.
Apple,
Like the licensing
Amazon
alone on Disney is, or not Disney, on DC characters is like $1.5 billion annually. It's bigger than the entire comic book industry.
Yes, it is. Like I said, it's a valuable IP farm for sure. Like, but for Disney's point of view, is they already have that product. They're not the one who needs it, but maybe a Comcast, Apple, Amazon. If AT&T is going to sell, you're going to look at someone else coming in the ring and saying, well, we want this to fight Disney. Disney is like, it just doesn't make sense for them to be like, oh, we're going to add more superheroes essentially to our Marvel lineup, because when you absorb DC essentially now becomes Marvel. You just have a bigger Marvel. When it's separate from Marvel, it remains.
I don't think it would necessarily mean that it would be part of Marvel. I think that DC would still be DC. It would be a separate brand under Disney. I mean, you occasionally see Hanna-Barbera characters within, Marvel Comics, but you don't, or DC Comics, but you don't see them too often. You would see more crossover events, which I think would actually be cooler.
For a short time, yeah, you would see, and then eventually it would just be all bundled into one. Because what's the point? When you can have Batman guest starring in every comic and every movie, like why keep it separate anymore?
I don't think so. It would be too much. No, I don't think so. I think they'd keep it separate.
Marvel is too creatively bankrupt to not do that. They don't have.
They brought Conan into the
Marvel universe.
It wasn't like the first time that it happened either.
They did it in 5 minutes. Like 5 minutes after they got the rights to Conan back, they put it in the Marvel universe of all places, not its own separate universe. If they had He-Man, they'd be doing the same. If they had
Calm down, it's not the first time they've done it.
But that's the point. They will do the exact same thing with DC.
Anyway,
I think that they would have crossover events, but I don't think it would be a permanent situation. So anyway,
but look, at the end of the day, AT&T needs the DC product for their streaming and film side, so they won't sell that.
Hey, it would mean you'd also get better DC movies, though.
Okay, but they still won't sell it. I mean,
I'm trying to look at the bright side here.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I'll take Christopher Nolan Batman's over Phase 4 any day.
But
I wouldn't.
But then, so
I wouldn't.
It comes back to the fact
that time. It was good for what it was, but not going forward. It was that much bleakness all the time would be a little bit. It was getting old by the end of the Christopher Nolan era.
You don't think Endgame was getting old by the end of the first half of the movie?
No, I could have probably had about 4 or 5 more movies based on those characters.
I couldn't even watch it a second time.
But
I've watched it like 10 times already. So when I put it on a loop at the store, and people just sit there and stare at it. So you're in a unique situation, I guess, Ash.
I guess, yeah. I know.
Man, you really want people staring at your TV? You want them looking at the comics, man. You need to put up Green Lantern. No one will look at that TV. They will turn right to the comic books.
No. The longer people stay in the store, the more likely they are to spend money. That's absolute fact.
I just wanted to zing Green Lantern. It's such a shitty movie.
It is. It's pretty bad.
But look, it just comes back to the fact that Disney wants to buy something that AT&T isn't interested in selling at any dollar amount, and AT&T only wants to sell the thing that Disney doesn't even want to be in the business of doing in the first place, which is publishing.
I do think that there is a dollar amount. It's just more than Disney would want to pay.
It's more than what's on the planet.
No, I don't think so.
No, seriously, they need the product. It's the only way for them to fill the space.
No,
So-
there's a dollar figure that we're not aware of.
Disney is their direct competition in the
It
streaming.
doesn't matter.
In the streaming sphere, they're going to give up what's going
It
to
doesn't
be.
matter. There's a dollar amount. Everybody has a price.
Yes, everybody has a price.
There is
If
a
it's
dollar amount, but DC's not going to pay it. That's the point. You
Disney-
sell, we're going to sell you
DC's not gonna
$100
pay it.
billion
Disney's not gonna
for
pay it.
DC.
there is no dollar amount that lets that Disney can offer that gives AT&T or that takes away probably 30% of their streaming product and gives it to their direct competitor. The only dollar amount is the dollar amount in which AT&T doesn't even need to exist anymore, because every investor and every person involved in the company doesn't even have to.
I don't think you're right, and we're going to go resound in circles on this. But go
Very
ahead.
good point, Pele. I think it's time to move on. Dane Barrett brought up something that's very dear to your heart, Doc. DC bought Wildstorm and absorbed them. What do you think about Wildstorm at DC Comics right now, Doc? Are you happy with it?
Oh, hell no. No, I haven't been happy with it. Honestly, I haven't been happy with it since Grant Morrison ruined it. Because
Good point.
Some old lore here, but Grant, Wildstorm was doing okay, and it wasn't doing spectacularly, but it was doing okay. And then they decided DC was kind of interfering more and more with Wildstorm, so Wildstorm decided Jim, before he was corporate at DC, he was still high up at DC, but he wasn't corporate. He agreed to let kind of go in a more traditional superhero role, and Grant Morrison was going to take over their two essentially marquee titles in Wildcats with Jim drawing it, and The Authority with Gene Haw drawing it. Grant did 2 issues of The Authority, 1 issue of Wildcats, and literally just stopped turning in scripts. Ruined, killed the 2 marquees, and then they spent about 1.5 years scrambling to try to make it work with something else, and ended up killing their whole universe. And the end of it was essentially one big merged 2 titles with Stormwatch and The Authority, or three merged titles with Wildcats, The Authority, and Stormwatch kind of all merged together, and then they all went off into space to nothingness. And then New 52 happened, and they merged it into the DCU. And the Wildstorm universe has no business being part of the DCU. It doesn't work. It for the same reason that DC characters won't work in Marvel, or the same reason that Wildstorm characters won't work in DC, because Wildstorm characters are very, very similar. They borrow a lot from Marvel style characters, and and as a result, I will literally never buy a thing with Grant Morrison's name on it again, because he ruined my favorite universe. Because, quote, well, I saw the reviews for issue 1 and I just said, oh, fuck it. And he decided to not quit and not actually continue turning in scripts.
All right. We do have a super chat from Josh. Thank you so much for for supporting the channel. I'd gladly take Suicide Squad over any Marvel film. I soured on the MCU so hard. Films are boring, cookie cutter trash. DC's films at least try to be something different. BVS Ultimate Cut is still my favorite. Well, obviously we disagree. I just made a video about the Snyder Cut and some of the Zack Snyder's vision for the DCU and where I think it failed. Although I have heard the Ultimate Cut is better. Doc, do you think Suicide Squad was better than every single Marvel MCU film?
No. Suicide Squad was a terrible one-dimensional movie that didn't have... Honestly, it was I'd put it on the level of Captain Marvel. Bland. There was really the only character development was in that Diablo guy.
Yeah, that was a good scene though at the end though.
Yeah, he was the only guy that had literally an entire movie where only one person that's like a tertiary character gets any character development. The movie starts and somehow finishes, and they turn them into a team after the attack happens, but still manage to they managed to recruit an entire team, convince them to do it, implant all the stuff in them, and get them into New York or wherever the hell it was. During the time of the attack, and Enchantress and that other guy didn't accomplish their goals in that time. What the hell? It's just the movie made no sense.
It was a good movie there because the introductions are actually pretty solid. The casting's good, but the villain and the story were just bad. It should have been about Joker. Ash, what are your thoughts on the Marvel movies? You just said, you're not as big a fan. I think they're basically become cookie cutter garbage. I hate the humor in them. I did enjoy Endgame. I thought that was a great capstone to finish off the MCU. As I know it, I'm not really that interested in moving forward. What is it about the MCU that you got soured on?
I'm really, honestly, I think it's following the way of the comics, that they decided to be pushing political agenda over good storytelling. The first half of the, phase 1 and phase 2 of Marvel, you could argue that it was cookie cutter and it was formulaic and stuff, but that's what worked. And that's what made comics work for so many generations. If you go back to any great era of comics, those were formulaic as well. That was part of what made comics work. And the MCU,
I didn't think the beginning of the MCU was formulaic at all. I thought they were all different.
Well, you didn't see it because you hadn't seen the formula played out. It's only later on when you see the same thing played again and again, you go, "Oh, this is formula."
Kenneth Branagh's Thor feels different than anything the MCU did. Like the Captain, America films felt like their own they had their own flavor to them. I think eventually everything kind of got dropped.
I don't know. Black Panther was basically a carbon copy of Kenneth Branagh's Thor.
It did have some story beats. Definitely a different feel to it.
It's hard to see the formula at the beginning when it's the first thing, but as it plays out, then you start saying, "Wait a second, it feels like formula."
I think
I'm not criticizing that. I'm saying that's fine. Like, as long as you do, I don't care if you give me formula, as long as you give me good formula. When you start mixing in your agenda and your garbage into that, then I don't care. And like Captain Marvel is a perfect example of that.
Well, that was at the tail end. But
yeah, it is at the tail. I'm just using it as an example, Pele.
Yeah.
So I don't mind the humor. What I mind is that every movie needs to be funny now. It worked great for Ant-Man. Ant-Man was that kind of movie. It works great for Spider-Man. It doesn't need to be in Thor. It doesn't need to be in the Avengers. Like every single movie, let's be quippy and funny and Marvel humor every single time. None of the movies have their own tone anymore. They're all becoming the same. It used to be.
I don't think Thor Ragnarok had comedy in it, but
yes, and that's the best of the films.
The Dark World,
yes,
probably. Dark World probably is the worst MCU movie. Except for Captain Marvel, it's probably the worst of the MCU movie.
Yeah, right. But Pele, you're missing my point. Isn't what Marvel used to be; it's what Marvel is now. And so all the Marvel movies have gone the way of let's all be funny all the time. Let's just be silly, slapsticky. And when they don't have their own tone and then their own identity, they all just kind of start feeling the same. It starts to become less interesting. And then honestly, Endgame really just pushed. It wasn't Captain Marvel that pushed me over the edge. I could at least sit through Captain Marvel and go, yeah, this is kind of trash, but whatever. It's just there. Endgame bothered me. Like I watch Endgame and I just like I can't stand watching what they're doing to Thor. I couldn't stand the pose for the A-Force shot. Look at women power. Like they went out of their way to slap me in the face in the theater.
Seconds.
But yeah, but it was 4 seconds that jarred me out of my seat. And maybe
I think you're taking that a little personally, Ash.
No, what I'm saying is I didn't pay
I still think it's
$14
a
for
really
a
good
movie ticket so that I could be annoyed.
Probably one of the 4 or 5 best. I'd put it at number 5. I'd put Endgame at number 5.
No way.
Yeah.
All right, this isn't an MCU debate show. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, Josh. I really appreciate that. Got some heated debate. You got Pele and Ash going at it. That's what we like to see.
I'm not going at it. He's just raving.
I know. I'm playing it
The
up.
Question was posed to me. What I didn't like. I'm just answering it.
All right. So Ryan Wilson, Wes, you have a Patreon. I do not. I do have a coffee page. I have considered setting up a Patreon, but I don't know. I probably should, but I do have coffee. There is a link in the video description of all my videos, and I definitely appreciate the support. If you want to use coffee, I may do a Patreon in the future. Thank you very much for asking that. And Ryan also, he had another one. There it is. What I don't understand is how all these people hate on Star Wars and Disney, yet continue to buy Star Wars products and movies and give money to Disney to make more SJW Star Wars crap. That's a pretty good point. You know, Pele, are you over Disney Star Wars yet?
Oh, everybody thinks over. I mean, I can go to like Walmart and see all the $1.50 toys, you know, that were formerly $7, you know, and tell that everybody's over Star Wars. You know, it's just, it's sad. It's really, really sad. And I think the only salvation that Star Wars has at this point is the Mandalorian. You know, it is the one ray of light in the whole damn thing. And they're going to milk little baby Yoda. They're just going to put him on a treadmill and just run his sorry little green ass, you know, until everybody's tired of looking at him too. It's just, oh well. I hoped that they wouldn't do that, but it looks like they're going to. So
the other thing to Ryan's post there is you have to understand is in our little circle here, there's a lot of hate on what's going on with Star Wars and to some extent Disney's Marvel stuff. But in the normie world, it's not quite the same. You know, I'm not saying Star Wars is as big as ever. That's absolutely not true. But I know tons of people that are extremely happy with Star Wars. They still love the stuff. They're still buying products. They're just because we have a bone to pick doesn't mean everyone has a bone to pick.
Well, I mean, you've got to look at the first Disney Star Wars movie broke records. The third Disney Star Wars film barely broke even. If you actually consider all of the costs associated, marketing and everything like that, it probably made about $100 million. And that's, oh my God, that's really tragic.
Oh, it's not that the normies are still happy or anything. The normies just stop caring. They just stop caring and they walk away. They don't say anything. They just leave and they're like, oh yeah, there's a new Star Wars coming out. I think maybe. I'll watch it when it's on TNT over Memorial Day weekend.
Well, I'll give you an example. Oh God, sorry.
No, go ahead, Breen.
Go ahead, Breen.
No, I was going to say that a friend of mine is a huge Star Wars fan and a toy collector. He is still very much into the movies, but I asked him, I said, well, do you buy any of the new merchandise? And it's expletive no. So that's kind of indicative. Like, I mean, to Ash's point, the normal folks that don't dive as deep as we do into these things, they're still okay with with the movies, but I don't think the toys and the merchandise in general. I think these last 3 movies, it just didn't work, and that's why you're seeing so many discount shelves of movies that even stuff from the first one. It's just I think that's a problem. I don't think these characters have resonated with the public and mass. The movies might be, but they're like Doc said, you watch them and you forget them almost instantly. It's like they become almost like cotton candy entertainment to this generation.
Well, yeah, that's pretty accurate. I mean, you ask most most normies out there, you ask, okay, who was in the original Star Wars trilogy, and they're like, yeah, Han and Luke and Leia and Vader, and that's about all they remember. They might barely remember Obi-Wan's name. They might be like that Ben guy, and from the beginning, the old guy, and but you ask them what the names of the characters are in the new ones. Most of them don't even remember because they're not the characters themselves are not memorable enough that people waste the gray matter in remembering their names.
Yeah, so the very first The Force Awakens, I believe I saw it 4 times in theater. I was definitely there on opening night. When The Last Jedi came out, I made sure and I picked up my family and took them to the theater, which was like 4 hours away from my house. Everything, and this last one I still haven't seen it because I just don't care anymore.
Yeah,
whatever. It's obviously not Star Wars for me.
Even worse, did any of us go and see Han Solo? See the Solo movie?
Still haven't seen it.
I haven't seen the 3rd prequel yet.
Yeah, there you go. It's just
Yeah,
but again, we're not indicative of everyone else.
Oh, we are on that one.
Yes, but we're the people that spend lots of money on it.
Movie still hasn't made money.
I get it. I'm not arguing that Star Wars is not in a problem. What I'm saying is there's this tendency for people to look around their own small, limited circle and think, oh, that's how everyone is, and it's just not the case. Like the world is not Twitter. Like it. I
understand the world is Twitter, but the Star Wars is on a decline as far as enthusiasm.
That is true.
And the merchandise isn't selling anymore because guys like me and Pele, the people that spend money on all that stuff and make sure they want all the Star Wars stuff, don't care anymore because they decided, they didn't want to make a Star Wars film. They wanted to make a film for everyone else.
Well, I remember seeing an article one time where they explained the power of fandom, and they showed dollar amounts according to what the normie spends. Like for every dollar that a normie spends, a super fan, what they classify as a super fan within a genre, for every dollar a normie spends, a super fan will spend $120.
Yes.
So and when the super fans are not happy, God help you, you're not going to make money.
But you're that discards the other question of what is the ratio of just normie fans to super fans. And because that's going to matter.
Absolutely.
If you have 500 normal fans to one super fan, then losing one super fan is
losing one quarter of your income.
Yes, you're losing about 25%. If it's 1 to 1,000, you're losing 12%. If it's 1 to 10,000, it's 1 or 2%. So that's what's really going to matter. It's what is your rate of super fan to fan, in what's your ratio there, and how much do they matter? Do they matter in most cases? Yes, because they are indicative. They are a great barometer. Them themselves losing their dollars isn't really relevant when you're dealing with the total of what they are compared to how many normie fans there are. However, those super fans are incredibly useful data points and barometers for whether or not you are tracking in the right direction. Their actual dollars it matters, but it's kind of irrelevant. Their interest in it waning and then pulling their dollars out is very indicative of what you are about to start experiencing in the normie fan sphere. That's where it's more useful.
I just want to say you guys are all right, but that's not what Ryan Wilson was talking about. He wasn't talking about why aren't people buying Star Wars products. He was saying why are people still buying Star Wars products, and that's what I was trying to answer.
Well, they're not.
That's the point. They lost money on Solo.
But they are. They're not buying it as much. But people still are buying.
Well, some people are still buying. A lot of things that aren't making money. Somebody's still buying something, but it's down.
some people's probably still buying Betamax. That doesn't mean it's still made.
Some people are still buying.
But
new
that was
comics.
never. That was. I'm just saying that was never Ryan's point. That was never what he said. So
well, there's a significant reduction in the number of people that are giving Disney money. They're having trouble with their park system. They're having trouble with their products, their films and TV shows and stuff like that. They're already having trouble with Disney Plus, with people that hopped on for The Mandalorian and then dropped the minute it was over, because there's not enough entertainment on there. There's not enough content. And the content that is there isn't that engaging.
But everyone understands this. We all agree on this.
Yeah.
We went a little off course, Ash. It's okay. Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. I don't want to argue what Ryan was actually asking. Wes, do you think Fantastic Four is coming to the MCU soon? Absolutely. I'll be shocked if they don't announce that within the next 12 months. I definitely expect the Fantastic Four to be one of those untitled, Phase 4 Marvel projects that we got coming up. Hold on 1 second. We do have a $10 super chat. Doctor, thanks for your comment on Donny Cates' Twitter thread, but now you're a bigot. What's he talking about?
Yeah, probably, but I honestly don't know. What did I don't know what I said about Donny Cates. I can't talk to Donny Cates. He blocked me.
Yeah, you can't comment on Donny Cates' Twitter thread because
he blocked me a long time ago.
Thank you so much for supporting the channel. We're not sure exactly what you're talking about. Well, where were we? We were on a Fantastic Four. All right, Doc. Are we getting a Fantastic Four in the MCU soon?
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's just a question of how are they going to bring them in, especially as being Marvel's first family. Are they going to retcon them in? Are they going to make them current? Are they going to, because you have a lot of changes in the Marvel timeline now because of Endgame. They basically broke the timeline, whether they wanted to admit it or not. They went out of their way to not break the timeline, and then they still ended up breaking the timeline. So you're going to end up with, they may end up coming over from another universe. Who knows? But I think they are. Yeah, they could be out in space, and they retcon them in as having been, because the best way to do it, honestly, in my opinion, would be to make them actually come from the 60s, and they were part of a space program, and they ended up in some, I don't know, temporal vortex hickey thing, and they come back with their powers now, but not aged, and they're kind of, they can kind of replace that Man Out of Time vibe from that Captain America doesn't have anymore. And it also explains kind of that family dynamic and why they stick together. But just an idea. Yeah. And it would explain why, but then you're going to have the problem of, I think they'll probably make Ben black, but Johnny, Reed, and Sue, unless what they could do? Actually, this might be a decent idea. They could, because that they're going to try to add diversity to the cast. I mean, we kind of all just know they're going to do that. But it could be like a Hidden Figures type situation where they were the ones working behind the scenes in the space program and didn't like the fact that their contributions were ignored and then stole the ship. That would be my idea.
Oh my God. I would hate that so much.
Huh?
If they pulled a thing where they're like minorities and they had to rebel and steal a ship because they weren't getting the patriarchy was keeping them down in the space program. Is that what you're understanding?
I have an expectation that might be the way that they go if they were
making me scared, buddy.
So you're saying they're black people and they had to steal. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. No.
Yes, I know.
We're going too far off the rails. Normies push nerds and geeks out of their own subculture. That is true. The Big Bang Theory ruined it for everybody, right? All right. We have any good questions? Luke dying retcon the OG trilogy. There we go. We got anything good? Where is it?
Oh, wait, hold on. All about the books clarified. He said, look at Ethan's timeline from yesterday. I go, oh, well, I'm blocked by Ethan too.
Absolutely. You are blocked by All right. Bougie Lou, what do you guys think about Batman Nightfall? This is a Breen question if I've ever heard one. What do you think about Chuck Dixon's Batman Nightfall?
I was a really big fan of it at the time, and it was a product of its time. A lot of characters were getting replaced in those days, or temporarily killed off. I think if it was guilty of anything, of maybe lasting a little bit too long.
I agree there.
I mean, they probably spent a little bit too much time with Jean Paul, just how violent and unhinged he'd become. But again, got to remember that was at the same time that Image was making millions with, when Bad Rock was selling more than any book will today. So, I mean, again, you got to put it in its historic context. But, overall, very good story. No man's land, but I enjoyed it, very much.
Absolutely a classic story. Up until the point where Batman's back gets broken and Azrael takes over, then I kind of got bored with it, to be honest.
Well, the gauntlet that he went through to get to that point,
yes,
that was really good storytelling, and then him reclaiming the mantle, that was good too. But the Jean Paul stuff was, again, that was 90s, in a nutshell.
Definitely wasn't my cup of tea. What were you saying, Ash?
I like Nightfall. It was the one of the few times it broke me out of my Marvel shell back in that era, because I was a huge just Marvel fanboy, and I rarely touched a DC comic, and that was an event that made me buy the Batman books and follow it. It was pretty fun. I think it's a little overrated when we look back at it in history. I think history kind of holds it a little bit higher esteem than maybe it deserves, but it was definitely fun, and it definitely got me to buy the books.
All right. We do have a question from Tevya. What about the Star Wars Clone Wars? It's a really good show. That's a terrible movie. I can't watch the new season because Disney Plus doesn't exist in the Philippines. Boom. This is a Pele question from Ryan Wilson. Do you think Batman 89 Hell Arisen #3 prices will drop? I refuse to pay these high prices for those issues.
No. First prints, no. Batman 89 is on a trajectory probably to be about $100 book, and the first print, and it's going to stick there probably. It'll be sticking there for a long time. I don't think it's going to adjust downward anytime soon because the demand outstrips the supply. Because of the whole the issue with the supply being, a lot of the first prints being damaged in the warehouse. If you want a first print, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think that the prices are going to go down, not anytime soon.
Nice, Eric.
The second prints, are already, I think, they've not even come out yet, and they're already hitting like $25-$30 on pre-order for some places. I'm not going to do that this time. I did that with the first prints as far as adjusting the price up to get rid of speculators, but for a second print, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put them on the shelf. I've ordered a butt ton of them, so I'm going to put them out on the shelf. First come, first served. Limit one per customer, and we'll see how much. We'll see how many people try to get around the system and try to get more copies of it, illicitly. I think it'll be interesting to see what people try to do to get around that. So,
all right. So you're saying buy in now because it's probably only going to go up.
Probably, if you really, really want a first print of it, then find the best price you can right now because it's not going to get any cheaper.
There you go. FF2 wants to know good Fantastic Four run to read. So I'm reading the original by Stan Lee, and it's pretty good. But I've actually read the Jonathan Hickman. I haven't read all of it, but I've read a good chunk of Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four, and I think that's really good. Those are the two that I've really enjoyed. Breen, you're older than dirt. You probably read it from its inception. What's a great Fantastic Four run for FF2?
Not quite. I've been touting this lately. It's Crusaders and Titans. It has the stories from 1976, and that is when I started reading. And in just 1 year, Roy Thomas was writing the book at the time. And in just 1 year, you had a crossover with the Hulk. His gamma rays canceled out Ben's cosmic rays, turned him back into Ben Grimm. Reed had to replace him with Power Man while he built an exoskeleton so Ben could come back to the team. Then you had a gorilla from Counter Earth come to recruit them because Galactus had decided he wanted to eat that Earth. And that led into a 5-part story that went directly into a Frightful Four storyline that involved Reed being replaced by the Brutes. So, I mean, it just so much was happening in that book at the time. And Roy Thomas is a hell of a writer. And so I would recommend that run.
Boom. Does anyone else have a Fantastic Four run they want to suggest to FF2?
Byrne. John Byrne's run.
Absolutely classic. That's one of the ones I definitely need to read. I am reading his Hulk run right now, which I'm actually enjoying a lot. Ron Garney's art is fantastic.
And a question for Eric.
Silver Surfer run. Oof.
Eric, would you if you I know you really like that Fantastic Four run that you just recommended, but for a new reader today in today's era of comics, would you if you think about it, is that a good recommendation for those readers as well, or is there maybe another Fantastic run that would be better suited for a today's reader as their first, dip in the waters?
Well, I think so because, I mean, like I said, obviously the Lee and Kirby, the John Byrne, those are the standard bearers for the history of the character. The Hickman run will give you a sense of, more of a modern take on, the team. But the one I mentioned, I mean, that was that, it was, the family was intact. You could tell the caring was there. Franklin was around as a very young child at the time, and this had just really good superhero stories. I mean, that's why I said in just that 1 year alone, you had Galactus, you had the Hulk, you had a Power Man joining the team. So I mean, you get a good idea of what the Marvel universe was like in those days, and a good idea of the characters. Because Reed was slowly losing his ability to stretch, and they, pardon the pun, stretched that out for about a year to get to that point. So they were subplots took time to develop, and I said but you did get a good sense of what the FF was all about.
I'm gonna pick it up myself. I'm gonna DM you later because I need to have all the details. I didn't write it down. All right, next up, NOLA Nerd Wes. Did you hear the rumors about Henry Cavill playing Wolverine in Captain Marvel 2? I have heard the rumors, and I'm a little conflicted. I think Henry Cavill, like face wise and everything, I think he'd make a good Wolverine, but he is enormous.
He's a
Wolverine
massive person.
He's not supposed to be huge like in height. He's supposed to be kind of wide and bulky and stuff like that. Doc, you're the X-Men historian. Is Henry Cavill like a good Wolverine?
No.
I'm conflicted.
No. He's just way too big. Jackman was able to get away with it, even though he was actually even taller, because he wasn't as broad. I mean, he was a big guy. He was jacked, but he wasn't as physically imposing. Henry Cavill was much more physically imposing because he's a lot broader, and it exaggerates his height as a result. And
he'd be a good Colossus.
He would be a spectacular Colossus. Honestly, I wouldn't even complain about him as Cyclops. I mean, he wouldn't be. You couldn't really call him slim. Yeah, I was going to say you couldn't really call him slim. But you know what? Actually, you know what he would be great at? He'd be a great Sabretooth.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be fine with him as a Sabretooth. And but you need somebody. You need somebody smaller. You need somebody. Wolverine.
I heard Seth Rogen as well today. What do you think about that idea?
I'm pretty sure that was just a joke.
Oh my goodness.
Red Booth, wasn't it?
Yeah, Brett, and Brett was. I think Brett was joking.
I'm taking the piss.
Yeah, because
suggestion.
Go ahead,
I've actually heard lately one of the rumors I heard was Tom Hardy.
He
But
could
Tom
work.
Hardy's been that's been floated for like since he was Bane.
But I've heard that's kind of floated up to the surface again. But the one reason why we won't see a Henry Cavill as Wolverine is because he still wants to be Superman. He really, really does, and he's still fighting to keep playing Superman. So, and you can't. And I think that if you play a seminal character in one universe ongoing, you're dead to the other one. So.
Well, that didn't stop. What's his name? Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, but he literally, burned his Green Lantern stuff in effigy. So,
All right, Breen, did you say you had a thought?
Well, yeah, as a fellow AEW fan, I don't think he's got the acting chops, but Pac. Yeah,
The bastard Pac?
yes.
Yeah.
He's short, he's
Yeah.
compact. I mean,
He looks feral, absolutely.
he looks feral, yeah.
But he doesn't sound Canadian. He sounds British.
Well, most of the actors in America are from across the pond. I mean, you work on the accent.
Oh,
But,
come
yeah,
on, they made Wolverine sound like an Aussie in the cartoon.
And then they cast an Aussie as him to sound American.
All right, the next one is Tsubasa True. Can we talk about the Shadow and other pulp heroes? Who wants to talk about the Shadow? Who's got something to say about the Shadow?
Shadow's
All right,
kind of
Breen,
awesome.
come on. So there you go, Doc. What do you like about the Shadow? Who's a good writer on there?
I mean, honestly, I'd love to see Frank Miller play with it more than because he kind of screwed up the. I'd like to see Frank Miller.
Like Frank Miller has the best Shadow run?
No. I just say I like him. I like the Shadow. I never read a lot of Shadow. I literally never paid a single bit of attention to anybody that wrote it. So I just think I'd like to see Frank Miller do it.
I really like the Shadow crossovers that they did with you had the Shadow and Batman crossover that was really, really excellent. I can't remember who wrote that, but I thought it was great. So,
And we're all silent now.
yeah, it's not a character that people remember very vividly, but they like and respect the character. So.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I don't really know the pulp characters very well, so I'm not chiming
I
in.
do not. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
All right, Danny DeVito for Wolverine. I remember that was a big. Wasn't that a big rumor there for a while, Doc?
That was back in the 90s that people were talking about DeVito as Wolverine. But that was I still love the original plan for casting, and it was the guy that played the cop in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
That was who.
Dennis Hoskins?
Bob
Yeah,
Hoskins.
Bob Hoskins.
There you go. My bad.
Because there was there's kind of a famous story about Stan Lee meeting with James Cameron about doing an X-Men movie, and because Cameron was interested in kind of getting into, because Cameron's always been like kind of a comics nerd, comics and manga. He's owned the rights to Alita for like 20 years, and had before he finally just produced the movie. But so Stan was talking to James Cameron about Wolverine, and and they were thinking Bob Hoskins, and for some reason the conversation turned to Spider-Man, and that was literally the end of any talks about getting an X-Men movie made. And that's when, because Cameron for a while owned parts of the Spider-Man rights, because those rights back in the 90s, like 80s and 90s, got sold so many times that by the time Sony was able to actually make the movie, it took like 5 years of trying to negotiate with other people that had bought the rights.
Nice.
Just so that they could actually make the movie that we ended up getting in what, 2002 or whatever it was, 2001.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we got something. This is, in the spirit of an old school comics and chill. We got old school comics himself. My current old school goal: near mint copies of Incredible Hulk 254 through 265, known as Hulk World Tour. Possibly a great idea for a Disney Plus series. Pele, what do you think about that collection? Is that going to be expensive?
Well, one problem is just the sheer enormity of the print run on those. I think that I think they're really awesome books to have. Of course, I don't know if I would really call them a big investment, but they're definitely great books to have on hand in high grade. They're probably always going to be consistent sellers. So,
all right, what's the next one? Will Marvel ever put out trades for all the Spider-Man comics post Clone Saga pre-Mackie? All right, who wants to take that one? Is that a Breen question? Is that a Pele question?
I think they did with the Spider-Man the Next Chapters. I think covers those.
Yeah, but I think that they're out of print right now. I think that they were in print at one point, but they're out of print now. I think that Marvel relies too heavily and leans too heavily on Marvel Unlimited to kind of cover that crap. Well, let's talk crap. It's good. But to cover that stuff, and I don't think they should. But if you make a little bit of a noise as far as Marvel's concerned and kind of talk about it, they will, they do have a good track record of putting the trades back and making them available again. So,
all right. So the next question is from Ryan King. I like this one. This is a man after my own heart. What's the best indie book out now or most exciting coming up? So there's a lot of good indie stuff. If you like horror comics, Vault has The Plot. They have Black Stars Above. There's a lot of really cool sci-fi stuff out there right now. Philadelphia is another horror book. Heist or How to Steal Your Planet's another good one. The Red Mother's pretty darn cool. If you haven't read The Wrong Earth, that came out last year. We're waiting for it to come back. But the one I'm really loving that I just think is awesome, it's from IDW. It's from a man named Livio Ramondelli. He's the artist. He's the writer. It's called The Kill Lock. And it is a badass indie comic. It's about 4 robots that have been given a death sentence. They've received something called a kill lock. When one of them dies, the other 4 will go offline as well. And they're on a mission to save one of them who is basically a baby robot, but he was born with a defect. They didn't make him correctly when they created him, and that was his sin, and that was why he got the kill lock. I think it's an absolutely amazing story. The art's terrific, and it's the one I'm really enjoying reading the most. Now, Ash, I know you're going to want to talk about Ascender while I go take my potty break.
Yeah, it's funny. Wes and I have very different tastes in indies, but I'm trying to cross over. The one he didn't mention, I'm surprised, is Blade Runner 2019, which I haven't actually dug into yet, but I have been trying to pick up. I can't find a number 1. It's so tough to find that, but I got all the other issues. Ascender is one of my favorite books out, period. It's one of my favorite books ever. I'm loving this book more and more every day. It brings me a similar joy going to the comic book store as I used to have back in the 80s and 90s when I was getting X-Men. It's a great kind of an ensemble cast. You've got a diverse, I don't want to say diverse, but you got a different group of characters that are each have their own personalities. They all feel very different motivations. They're not all perfect. They each have room for growth, and a lot of them just want to kind of do their own thing, but they're kind of thrust into this situation that forces them to either be heroes or maybe villains. It's a great saga. It's just fun to read. It doesn't try to be overly complex. It's just a simple adventure story, but it just does things right. The art is just really pleasing to look at. It's a great fun book. I urge people to check it out. The great thing about Image is that you can get their trades really cheap. They don't try to overprice you. They really just want you to read it. And other books, man, Birthright has been just quietly just out there, from Skybound, part of Image. That's Robert Kirkman's imprint. That's by Joshua Williamson, who writes Flash, and he also writes Superman, Batman. That's a really cool sort of sword and sorcery fantasy, but it's about a kid from the real world, like our world, who's foretold to be the hero of ages to save this alternate dimension, which is this fantasy world. Except it takes the usual tropes that you think are going to play off, and it turns them on their head, which I think makes it real interesting. Oblivion Song is still like that. If anyone wants a long burning soap opera comic that's well written, heavy on plot, that keeps you just wanting to know what's going on and wants to know more, Oblivion Song is it. I don't think it has the normie outreach that Walking Dead has, because zombies is kind of a simple thing that is exploded into the culture. But I recommend giving it a try. It's something unique and original. Man, what other independent books? I'm trying to get into Criminal. The last series just wrapped up, but I'm trying to pick up the trades. Everyone is just telling me how amazing that is, so I will probably for sure be picking up the next Criminal series or whatever Brubaker and Phillips do, because they don't always do Criminal. Looks like they got a Wild West book coming out here in a couple months called I forget. But
Ash, next time you're at that place that with the $5 trades, see if any of the Criminals are in there.
There are. They had like 4 or 5 of the volumes. I just couldn't afford them. So I just picked up the first one. So
I really like the George R. Martin books adapted for comics, because they're adapted from the books, not the TV show. So they're extremely well done. The art's usually very, very good. Sometimes it's a little off, but the story, of course, is fantastic, because it is George R. R. Martin, and it is Game of Thrones. So yeah, those are excellent. You can pick up the back issues of those pretty inexpensively. Another one was the miniseries Vampire State Building, which was fantastic. It was an awesome miniseries, recently ended. I think that's a must buy if you like horror. You can go back now and get a lot of the old Image books from there's I think it was, oh gosh, who is that? One of the big retailers, online retailers, has recently had like a 50% off sale on Image books, not counting keys. You'd load up on those pretty inexpensively. So I'll try to remember who. It might be Graham Crackers. I'm not sure. But we got a $20 super chat.
I was waiting for Wes to come back, put it up on the screen.
So thank you very much, Kenneth Dowling, for the support for the channel. $20 super chat. That's extremely generous, and I definitely appreciate that. Hi, guys. Regarding your topic yesterday, I bought Amazing Spider-Man 270 through 283, along with Web of Spider-Man 28 and 29. I love old school comics of Spidey in the black costume, not the symbiote, the replacement. Ash, what were your thoughts on the black costume, after Secret Wars?
I love the black costume. Now I'm partial to the symbiote. I mean, it looks cool, so I'll take a replacement too. Although it never really made sense why Parker would just do a replacement, because it kind of had bad connotations. But be that as it may, I think the symbiote thing, what they developed out. I mean, they started off with just like, hey, it's a random thing. They make a black suit. They had no concept of what it was going to be. But Todd McFarlane and Michelini worked out this story and put in basically retconned it and came up with this whole backstory, and it's been developed to what we know today with the whole Venom, and now Donny Cates is rolling on it even bigger. And the idea of this symbiote kind of attaching itself to Parker and kind of falling in love with him in a weird kind of way, not a sexual way, but and it changing his emotions and kind of being bad for him, and him having to fight it off, and then ultimately becoming arguably one of his biggest villains. I loved it. I loved the story. I loved how it affected him. It caused a lot of drama in an otherwise kind of silly, lighthearted book. it's rare that you can do Spider-Man serious. Like, you know, you get those times like Kraven's Last Hunt and stuff, and when you do it really, really good, it works. But a lot of times it can fall flat on its face because Spider-Man's such a, you know, quippy guy, and he's having light, fun adventures, and he's always talking, you know, trash to the villains as he's beating them up. And it's a different kind of style of book, and it's hard for writers to implement that. And I thought the black costume allowed for a lot of those opportunities that didn't present themselves otherwise.
All right, Pele, you know, thinking about it from a collector standpoint, you know, is that a good collection of Spider-Man comics to have for future value to have in your collection?
I think that they're great to have for enjoyment, but again, print runs. I mean, just massive print runs.
Mm-hmm.
Anything between 250 and 300 is just going to be, you know, we're talking $250,000.
252.
Yeah. That's what I mean. But it's you know, high grade only really as far as value. But yeah, if they're in really, really high grade, yeah. If they're near mint, yeah, that'd be really good collectibles to have. If you happen to find them already graded, which, you know, I don't really recommend that. But unless you can get it for a really good price. But yeah, fantastic to have in high grade, or just to have for your collection. They're seminal. They're seminal work.
Does anyone have anything else to say about you know, Spider-Man acquiring the black suit after Secret War and that run that he's talking about?
You know what? I always loved the black suit. It's easily, you know, as much as I love the classic suit, if he had to be in something else, you know, it's kind of like my love for the brown suit, the brown and tan for Wolverine. Yes, his yellow and blue is classic, but I always love the black suit just a little bit more. I mean, it's not as iconic, obviously, but for something, there is an elegant simplicity to that costume that is almost the exact opposite of the iconic and unique and detailed costume of the classic costume that makes it a great alternative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the classic costume has all the details with the webbing and the colors and everything like that. But the black costume is like if somebody totally reimagined, like, you know how remember back in the early 2000s, they did the Just Imagine Stan Lee creating all the DC characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they were mostly disappointing. But it was like, what if somebody like a designer came in and did a design for Spider-Man, but kept it with like spandex?
Well, you know who was really happy with the black costume? Everybody that had to draw Spider-Man.
Yes.
That's true.
So another $10 super chat from Kenneth. Peter wore the replacement black costume because Black Cat made it for him. She loved him in the black costume, and they were dating at the time. Love the discussion. Keep it up, guys. Well, thank you very much. We love talking about comics and addressing all of your questions in the viewer chats. Of course, if you do have a super chat, your question will be prioritized and moved to the front of the line. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and I really appreciate it. And getting to talk about some of the black costume as far as Spider-Man goes. Of course, as far as I'm concerned, my favorite Spider-Man costume happened in the black costume, and it's Kraven's Last Hunt. So there is a question I was looking for.
Well,
there it is.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because, you know, and don't we all just love the original Spider Armor costume where he looks like he's wearing silver hockey pads?
Beautiful.
All right.
I think we auctioned that last night.
Ryan Wilson asked, your favorite X-Men Omni stories to get. Normally I throw this to Doc, but today I'm throwing it to Breen. What would you suggest?
Oh, wow. Well, I said they're out of print at the moment, but someone in the chat mentioned they're coming back. The first Uncanny X-Men that starts with Giant Size #1. And that if they reprint them the way they they did the first time. That'll take you up to like 130, 131, which unfortunately is like a couple issues into the Phoenix storyline, but you get all the classic early Claremont and Cockrum, then Byrne, and really the team's development is chronicled so beautifully in those issues.
Well said. Okay, where did it go? I had another one ready. We had another one ready. What? Okay, someone asked. There it is. Should I read Swamp Thing by Alan Moore? Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, Saga of the Swamp Thing Book 1 is the best comic ever written by Alan Moore. In fact, it's one of the 5 best comic stories I've ever read in my life, and the art is just fantastic. Love that story. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about Swamp Thing by Alan Moore?
Oh,
Pele?
it's fantastic. Starting with issue, I think it's number 20. Was when he came on board with the. I mean, Swamp Thing before was kind of like a quirky kind of horror comic, weird, unusual kind of horror comic, but Alan Moore just took it up a notch, and then took it up another notch beyond that, and it is, in my opinion, it is the work of the 1980s in comics. I mean, above and beyond even Dark Knight. I mean, it is the best. I mean, it's not the most known about, it's not the one most recognized, but it is just, it's incredible. It really, really is. It's so well written. The artwork is just jaw-droppingly gorgeous.
That's Stephen Bissett, right?
Yeah. Bissett's artwork is just fantastic. All the way up from 20 to 50, and then to start in with the John Constantine coming into the mix, and then you had the introduction of Justice League Dark. It's just wow. It's probably my favorite stretch of comics from any one title from DC. That would be it.
Well, I definitely agree with you. When I read that story, I wasn't actually expecting much. It had been suggested, and I was absolutely blown away by the art. Some of the things that the art team in that thing, they were just really cutting edge. And that origin story, the way he remade the origin for Swamp Thing was out of this world. I don't even get how he got there, but it was amazing. So Old School Comics is saying Red Mother is intriguing. I agree with you there, but Killock is amazing and probably the best John comic I currently read. And I agree with you there too. Livio Raimondelli is absolutely blowing it away on that comic. If you haven't got back onto the Killock hype train, definitely go check it out. The 3rd issue came out this week, I believe. Tevya Smolka, do you think Uncanny X-Men will ever return? It just returned, in 2019. So let's give it some room to breathe before they ruin that one again.
Yep.
Yeah, they kind of defile that corpse.
The answer is yes. Of course
it will.
Return.
Should it ever
course.
return?
Yeah, that's up for debate. Yeah, I think that it'll come. It's coming. It's just a question of when. And it might, Hickman might not do Uncanny while he's kind of in charge.
I think that they'll get the whole thing resolved with Krakoa and the clone situation before they do Uncanny again.
That's kind of my gut feeling on it too. Nothing to, no evidence to prove that, but just gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Doc. Did you talk about Everglade Angels? Is that where this comment came from?
I don't know what comment.
This one.
Oh yeah, I did. Somebody else was asking. Somebody was recommending indie stuff, and I think Fiona Wolf put up a list of, or Dominic Powell put up a list of decent, indies and kind of crowdfunded books. And I said, Everglades Angels was really good. I enjoyed it.
Someone previously. Oh, I was just going to say, somebody previously made a comment about that. I forget who it was. It was in the chat that Pele's okay with Batman '89 being costing $100. It's not that I'm okay with it. It's just the fact that's going to be the reality of it. And if I have to pay somebody $75, or $70, $68 or whatever to sell me a comic, I'm going to have to mark it up. So it's not the fact that I'm sitting on all these copies of it, just waiting to mark them up to $100. It's, what is somebody going to sell? What's somebody going to charge me for it to buy it from them? And the market's going to influence that. And like I said, if I've got to pay $70 for it, I'm going to mark it up 25, 30%, and it's going to be $100. So that's reality. And, I've seen it happen many, many times before with other titles, books that just get so extremely hot that the Batman Damn #1, it happens. And, I know that there's people out there that want this book and they don't want to spend over $20 or whatever to get it. But I think that ship has sailed for first prints, and it just is what it is. Unfortunately, second prints are probably going to be right behind that. And then the third prints are going to come out and be really reasonable. So it's just, again, it's not what we're okay with. It's what that we've seen happen so many times before. And it's just, that's the reality of comic collecting, is things do go up in value. It's not really so much that this is what retailers are charging. It's just, that's what the intrinsic value becomes. And to get more copies of it, you've got to pay a lot of money to have people turn loose of them. So.
Yeah. Look, is it ideal? No. But, if you don't do something to discourage essentially the scalpers, they're going to come in and buy up everything 5 minutes after you open. And then everybody else that comes in is going to have to pay eBay price. The idea is to try to find somewhere in the kind of in a happy medium. Yeah. You don't want to have to do it, but you kind of forced to, because otherwise everybody that comes in is going to be pissed off they can't get it.
Yeah.
And then they have to go to eBay. But if you charge them a couple extra bucks, hopefully it's enough that it's still cheaper than eBay, but also people aren't going to, there's no incentive for the eBay scalpers.
Yeah.
They don't make enough money.
Exactly.
After eBay's cuts, PayPal's cuts, and everything else. So, this is the result of online pre-release hype in the internet age. Sorry. It's just the market. It sucks. And you can't buy them anymore. It's not like DC has more stock that they can open up.
Well, you can buy the second and third prints or whatever that come out after. It's that people want the first print, but they don't want to pay first print collector prices. And it's kind of that.
We already had this discussion.
Okay. All right.
We did a 30-minute video on it.
I know, but people were asking about it. So
what's up?
Oh, just people were asking in the chat.
Yeah. We already got the comments riled up on that one last week. I don't want to get into that debate again. Pele made a very good, compelling case. I think he spoke about it very well. Let's move on. FF2, any manga recommendations? I'm looking for some cool series to check out. So I personally have 3. If you're a Capes fan and you're looking to maybe cross over, I think that the perfect manga to as an introduction is One Punch Man. If you're a fan of movies and you're maybe wanting to come over into manga, I think Battle Angel Alita is a great one because the movie came out. A lot of people are going to be familiar with the character and the arc and stuff. But the one I really like is called The Promised Neverland. It's absolutely insane, beautiful art, and it's one of the craziest stories you'll ever read. And you'll only find it in manga. You won't find it in Western comics, things like that. Does anybody else have a manga recommendation?
I think I want to second One Punch Man is really good. But also, I know it's super huge and overhyped and whatever, but My Hero Academia is really good. And if you are into capes and you really miss the ideological, not ideological in a political sense, but the ideological, just like the hope and the helping people and doing good, that sort of that aspirational hero that you're missing in today's comic world, My Hero Academia is just full of it. And it's a ton of fun. I was like, I snubbed my nose at it in the beginning, but then I finally gave it a chance, and I was like, oh wow, this is really pretty amazing.
Nice. And the Bird of Bloodhaven is saying the best manga is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I have not read that one. Has anyone read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure here?
I have not.
Man, we do not have enough weebs on the show. Where is Tim Lim when I need him? But thank you so much for supporting the channel, Bird of Bloodhaven. And that is going to go on the list. I've seen it, but I've never read that one. Okay, what were we?
I literally have never watched a single or read a single page of a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure or watched a minute of it. It's manga. Weeb shit.
Wow.
All right.
How do you really feel, Doc?
Weeb shit.
Do you think DC Comics 5G is going to fail or get canceled? Absolutely not. It's not going to get canceled. All the scripts are already written, as I'm being told that there are being some adjustments, but is going ahead as planned. Will it fail or not? Well, it depends on what your definition of failure is, but it will definitely happen. It will go to fruition, and then it will launch out the other side with whatever the new direction for DC Comics is. Is that how you're understanding it, Pele?
Oh, yeah. That's how I'm understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. 5G is going to be a massive bomb. So
definitely could happen. What are the best war comics? Garth Ennis, Sergeant Rock. Ooh, this is got to be a Breen question. What's the best war comic?
Oh gosh,
Breen doesn't strike me as a war comics reader.
Oh, it's got to be a war comic. He likes the Duke.
I am.
Oh, it's Pele. What's the best war comics?
Our Army at War is fantastic. Really, really good stuff. There's some amazing titles from the Atomic Age. There's a lot of pre-code war, same as pre-code horror. That's just like visceral, amazing stuff that would never get published today by Marvel or DC. That's just brutal. Really, really great stuff. Fantastic art. You can still get them pretty cheap too. Go to your favorite purveyor of silver and golden age comics, and you can pick them up at a pretty reasonable cost as long as you don't go too high grade. But that seems to have been the era right then. It was right after the Korean War, right after World War II and the Korean War, and there came out some incredible wartime comics then. Sergeant Rock will probably always be the standard bearer for more like modern types of war comics. But my personal favorites are Army at War before Sergeant Rock. That time period. The Nom was fantastic as far as Marvel trying its hand at it. But what are you going to say, Breen?
No, I was just going to say that I haven't read a lot of war comics. I mean, it's because I was always more of a superhero guy, but I just started reading, a decent amount of them in the last couple of years, and now I'm kind of retroactively kicking myself for not having read them through the years, because you're right. The DC war comics were incredible. Even through this, even into the 70s, they were still telling great stories.
Does G.I. Joe count? I'm legitimately curious. I mean, it's kind of a war comic.
With war comic collectors, they don't count G.I. Joe, but they do recognize that G.I. Joe exists.
Okay.
So,
I'd say then, because I've only really read like 2 war comics. I really liked that, like G.I. Joe, and I really liked Garth Ennis and Jason Barrows did a story for Avatar years ago called The 303 that I really liked. And it like actually the current Punisher Soviet run has a very, with having Garth and Jason back together, it takes a lot of stuff that they did on the 303 because it was about it almost feels like a in Marvel universe sequel to that, like 20 some years later, that the Russian guy in Punisher Soviet feels like the guy, because it was set in the Afghanistan war and it was about the Soviets in Afghanistan. It was really good.
All right, so we do have another super chat from Kenneth Dowling. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. Question for everyone, but particularly Doc. Oh man, Doc, it's all the good questions. X-Men #7, I think, is the boldest issue so far. I agree with you. Isn't there a mutant who can resurrect people, but they lose their souls? Do you think Hickman is foreshadowing this?
Does anybody else want to go first before I talk? Because I don't want to cover everything. If somebody else
cover it all, buddy. He wants to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think doesn't Layla Miller have that ability? Wasn't she kind of able to resurrect people, but they don't have souls? I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on X-Men 7. That there was a lot of interesting stuff that happened in that. It was all kind of buried under a lot of other stuff, but there was a lot of interesting little bits here and there. But we haven't seen Layla Miller. I think her power is, because she used to be, she knew stuff, but I think her actual power is resurrection, but they come back without souls because I think she did that to Guido. She resurrected Guido, but he didn't have his soul. And so you may, I'm thinking that the whole resurrection thing, and that Layla may end up playing an important role in this, of her kind of showing up to be like, don't you guys realize anytime you resurrect people, they don't have their soul? You haven't brought it back. You've just brought their body back. And I think that may be where they're going with it. But
are the original X-Men still on Krakoa, buried down there with Sabretooth?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But they haven't said that they are. I just think that they are. It's also an escape hatch for the series. Like X-Men 7 had a lot of really interesting, cool little stuff that they mentioned kind of in passing, that if you weren't really paying attention, you missed. Like I know that they talked about the Wes, do you want me to talk about this, or do we want to talk about something else so that we can
No, do it, man.
Okay. All right.
I just don't want to talk about the stuff we talk about for Twix tomorrow.
Yeah.
This wasn't in that.
Yeah. So you had that building that nobody could get into except for Nightcrawler, and then Nightcrawler wanting to kind of create, but that building is also, it looks like the Tower of Nimrod. The Lesser. Then you have Kurt trying to start thinking about and coming to the conclusion of starting a religion. And then you have mentions of resurrection and the wills, which I think was the biggest thing there. Where a lot of
people are making wills that I don't want to be resurrected, or I want this person's body but my soul in it, kind of thing.
Yeah, like people were asking, instead of being brought back in their own body, or to get some of someone else's powers too. Mm-hmm. And I think
those powers.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of like a lead in to the hybrid program, plus the you had that red Nightcrawler looking dude from the future in House of X, Powers of X, that was called a Cardinal. And it was, there was a lot of them. And Cardinal is a religious, essentially, rank. I think it's in Nightcrawler's religion that he is a cardinal of that religion. So you're catching all these little things here and there. With the hybrid program, the wills, the cardinal, it's kind of starting to foreshadow some of the stuff that we saw coming to fruition in House of X and Powers of X. And I think a lot of that got lost behind is Scott and Logan boning.
Gross.
Ugh. Yeah, like that was the big takeaway. And I was watching, I'm like, okay, well, that sucked. That was a stupid line, and I feel like they screwed up. Like they wrote it wrong, and it was supposed to be Jean sitting there with Logan having that conversation. Because Scott says Scott in a Speedo.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
He was trying to ruin his vision. He thought he was thinking about Gene in his head, so he tried to put another thought in his head.
Yeah, I get that. But I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe you're right. But that was kind of like the most jarring line. But so everybody's talking about, are Scott and Logan boning? And I'm sitting there going like, did you guys miss all of the stuff that connected? Like, that was the thing that I really liked about this issue, was all that connective tissue that it had that everyone else seemed to like just pass right over.
Yeah, but apparently there is a three-way going on. So
okay, I don't care.
And it's okay when it's in a three-way. Yeah.
What if Jean Grey is using her psychic powers to try to make Scott and Wolverine get along better because they've always fought, and then it like went too far and it like had adverse effects?
Jean stopped making people gay.
Yeah, but Logan, you're gay.
She's good at that. She's done it before. Apparently, that's her raison d'etre. You know, she turns heterosexual men gay. You know,
yeah, that's her actual mutant power.
It's a little easier now the way she's drawn compared to the way she used to be too.
I know.
Yeah, like a little kid now. It's like, what?
She's not allowed to be attractive.
She's free to be ugly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Body positivity.
Oh my goodness.
Positively.
Men are women and women are men.
Kenneth Dowling, thank you so much for supporting the channel and bringing up a great topic. X-Men #7 was an excellent comic. Really enjoyed breaking that one down on Outside the Bleed. But there's literally so much in there that the review would have been 40 minutes if we actually hit it all. I couldn't believe how deep that comic was. FF2, I completely forgot about Jeff Johns' Shazam. I had the first issue and forgot about it. Is it on y'all's list? I read the first issue and I didn't really like it, and I didn't revisit it. Is anyone reading Shazam by Jeff Johns?
No.
Doesn't sound like it. All right. Black Cat. 10 of Swords. What's that all about? Doc and I have a video on this very thing coming out tomorrow for This Week in X-Men. And we'll address it the best way that we could, but we're not sure is the answer.
Yeah. Like, not enough information is kind of the big takeaway that I had.
Mm-hmm. All right, old school comics bringing in some knowledge. Michael Golden turned down Batman to do the art on the NAM, and he also has Robert Venditti's 6 Days. Does anyone have any thoughts on Michael Golden's art in NAM?
It's
on
amazing.
The NAM?
Oh yeah,
I'm a fan of Michael Golden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I didn't know any better until I got that book, and I was like, oh, okay. Now I see why this guy's a big deal.
Yeah, I remember back in the day. You talk about hot comics that went crazy in value. The NOM, starting with issue 1, it was really one of the first books in the modern era that just went wild. And issue number 1 flew up in value to like, $30, $40, $50, and people are sitting there, with their mouths dropped open, wondering what the heck is going on. And and it shocked the crap out of everyone, and it sold, there's everybody wanted a copy of it and nobody could find it. It was pretty crazy.
All right. Tevya is saying, I love Jeff Johns' Shazam. It's fantastic. There you go. There's a recommendation. Tevya also asks, any opinion on Superboy Prime finally returning? It sounds like he's returning to meet Jonathan Kent in the Legion of Superheroes or something Bendis is writing, so I couldn't be less interested. Although maybe it's come back with Shazam as well. Whatever. The Bendis one, not interested. Terrible. Good. Got to be terrible.
Too many Superboys.
Yeah.
Far too many Superboys.
Superboy Prime.
There's too many. DC and Marvel both have the problem of they have too many of the essentially the same titled characters, like the same mantle characters, all running around at the same time.
I fear that's what the MCU is going to do, is when they do come out with Wolverine, we're going to get X-23.
Well, they already have that character.
I know, but I'm saying in the MCU, they're not even going to do Logan. They're just going to.
Wow, that's a good way to sink your your X-Men reboot.
How about Henry? How about Henry Cavill playing X-23?
Boom.
Didn't see that coming.
Whoa.
Yeah. You know what? I'm good with this. I'll go with this one.
So somebody was saying Carl Urban, another great choice, but I think he's too huge. He looks like he's about 6'3", right?
Carl Urban, he's tall and kind of skinny.
Mm-hmm.
He was
a damn good Dread.
He never struck me as a big guy. I guess I didn't know. I don't know how tall he is, but on camera, he never looked big. Henry Cavill, like on camera, looks like a big guy. When you see him in that last Mission Impossible film, you're just like, Jesus, dude, I didn't realize you were so big. Like,
yeah. I kind of dug that Henry Cavill was like this enormous jacked up Superman. I was like, what? Superman should be pretty fucking
yeah.
He should be fit. He should be like he's
big Kansas corn-fed big. Yeah. I hate this skinny Superman.
But he also can't really get, he can't really get a good workout. That's the problem.
I think Tom Cruise back in the day would have been an amazing Wolverine. I mean, just
I don't know. I'm thinking kind of maybe Shia LaBeouf.
Oh. You might be onto something, actually. I know people like to knock Shia LaBeouf, but watch The Fury, watch some of his other lesser known films. He's a good actor, and he can disappear into a role.
Oh, turn it all on its head and make James McAvoy Wolverine. I mean, he's 5'6". He's a little fella. You bulk him out real good, and you make him Logan just to turn it all on its head.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, the Professor X is Wolverine.
That would be amazing.
That would be crazy. So Max Santiago asks, do some of you wait to read issues of comics so you can read them back to back? So he's asking about trade waiting. I got used to reading them in paperback form. Yeah, trade waiting is great, especially depending on the writer. If you know it's a 5-part miniseries, and you don't want to wait, like I think Batman White Knight reads fabulous as a trade. It reads good as single floppy as well, but I think it reads even better in trade. So I think depending on the character and the writer and what the story is going to be, trade waiting is a good option. I think it's actually pretty smart. Do any of you guys do any trade waiting?
I don't think he was actually talking trade waiting. I think he's talking buying the individual issues and then reading it like a trade.
Binge reading like Netflix.
Yes, binge reading. Yeah, and I do that actually quite often. Like sometimes, some books I'll read the minute I get. Other books I'll wait and read 3 issues, and I'll kind of binge a handful of issues at once. Oddly enough, I did that with the beginning of Curse of the White Knight. I waited until like issue 4 or 5, and then read all 5, and then I've read the last 2 alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so absolutely. I have my read pile is about, I don't know, it's got to be like 125, maybe 150 comics right now. So I will absolutely binge, 5 to 10 comics at once that are all the same thing. And I know, Doc, you got like 2 long boxes?
No, I got 2 short boxes full.
Okay, that's still pretty. Pele, I know you got like some long boxes full of comics waiting to be read, right?
Most of a long box, yeah, about 3/4 of a long box that's just waiting.
I have a long box full, a short box full of backlog as well, but I don't choose to binge read. It's more I just get behind. I honestly, it's a love-hate relationship. Sometimes like binging, like I did all of White Knight, I had to binge the whole thing, but I'm really enjoying Curse of the White Knight going issue to issue. It's the same problem I have with like Netflix. As much as I enjoy sitting and getting it all and just not having to wait, I also really enjoy how Curse of the White Knight has been around for 8 months in my mind, and I'm immersed in it, not just in like a couple hours in one sitting. I liked stretching that out and that anticipation and then getting that next book. It sucks to wait, I know, but man, when you do and you look back on it, you're like, man, that was a great experience that I had drawn out over this lengthy period of time, and it really makes you feel like your money was a lot more worth it than if you just go, oh, here's a $25 in books, and I just read them in an hour. So it's a mixed bag. So that's how I feel.
All right, so this is going to be the final question. Where was it? Oh, there it is. This will be the last question for the panel before we give our comic book recommendations. This is from FF2. Favorite Superman story? This is a question for everyone. So mine is absolutely Superman Up, Up, and Away, which is written by, half of it was in Superman, the other half was in Action Comics, half of it was written by Jeff Johns, and is the other one, it's not Ron Mars, is it? I can't remember who the other one. It's one of those crazy dudes that no one likes on the internet anymore. But Up, Up, and Away is a great story. Superman is depowered. He's basically just Clark Kent, and you actually learn about Clark Kent and why he is a hero as Superman. And it's not because of his power set as Superman. It is because of his personal his personal character and the way he was raised is why he's a superhero. It just so happens that he has the powers of Superman to where he can help everyone. But Superman Up, Up, and Away is absolutely my favorite. Pele, what is your favorite Superman story?
Probably the Byrne Superman, just the classic
Man of
John
Steel?
Byrne. Yeah, that and his that other run he did with I can't remember.
Kurt Busiek. Sorry about that.
Yeah. That series I think is that's how I usually direct people if they want to kind of get into Superman. So, and also I love Red Sun.
That's absolutely
as a
great
curveball.
Doc, what's your favorite Superman story?
It's one that I both loved and hated, and it was no. It was Joe Kelly, or I'm sorry, was it Joe Kelly or Joe Casey? What's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way? It was the one where they basically lampooned the authority. It was well done. As much as I hate, because the authority was a much more it wasn't the authority, but it was the order or something like that, and they basically used analogs for authority characters, which is amusing because they were kind of analogs for the Justice League, and basically Superman proved that his kind of much more optimistic worldview would still beat their the elite. That was what they were called, the elite, and it would beat their much more cynical worldview. And he basically won through the power of positive thinking. And it was great to kind of because Superman needs to be that person.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that one, Doc. Ash, what's your favorite Superman story?
Well, admittedly, I have not read a lot of Superman. I only came into Superman just a couple years ago, and there's a lot of the great classics, like the one you mentioned, Up, Up, and Away. It's on my wish list on Comixology. I just haven't gotten around to picking it up. Definitely want to read it. I did pick up the John Byrne Superman on Eric Breen's recommendation, the Man of Steel miniseries. It's supposed to be an all-time classic. I haven't been able to get to read that yet. So for me, my favorite is probably not going to be, very strong opinion, but it's Tomasi's run, especially the beginning of that run. I liked
Superman and Son.
Yeah, I like the Superman Son. I like the death of the 52 Superman and the new Superman taking over and trying to find his place in the world with his son. I thought it was a really unique and original story. I've never seen or heard of Superman being done in this way. And it just really, it just really spoke to me in a way. So I'm looking forward to a lot. It's the book that really made me a Superman fan. I always liked Superman, but he was always I was a normie. I was kind of the guy that was like, yeah, Superman 1 and 2 are amazing movies. I love that. But I never liked him as like, oh, I could see myself buying a monthly book. It was more of like, sure, he's there. It's cool. And that was the book that made me go, oh, I want to read this every month.
If you want to have like just a really cool evening, get the trade for Superman, Man of Steel, and the trade for Red Sun, and sit and read them back to back, because I did that one time.
Oh, okay.
And to see despair, just to see the contrast there. And it's awesome. Just take about 4 or 5 hours, get you a favorite beverage, sit back and just enjoy that. And that's an awesome evening of reading.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. All right, Eric, what's your favorite Superman story?
Pre-crisis, Kryptonite No More, which was Denny O'Neil's attempt to make Superman relevant in the early 70s. Post-crisis, right before the crisis, the 2-part Alan Moore, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which closed out Adventures of Superman and Action Comics before Byrne took both of them over, or took over the 2, and then I think Marv Wolfman took over the other one. But anyway, Man of Steel miniseries, and then modern age, the 2-part Vacation issues from Tomasi's Superman.
Well said, sir. Okay, there is one more question. I'm not going to answer it too in depth, but Jamal Lewis, why is Black Panther and Wakanda in space? I believe it's because Ta-Nehisi Coates realized he wrote a really boring story before that, so he wanted to do something a little bit more exciting. But it turns out he's a better novelist and a comic book writer, and it's still too decompressed and hard to read. And I hope you do know that Ta-Nehisi Coates has been announced that Black Panther 25 will be his last on the issue, and he's leaving back Black Panther. So hopefully they get a good creator in, maybe Brian Hill, but we'll see how that one goes. And I think that will basically wrap up the show. I guess it's time for the weekly comic book recommendations. Who we going with? Breen, what are you recommending this week?
I guess we've been talking about John Byrne a lot lately, and she'll a Tuesday night live stream where Englentine and I are going to do do top 5 Byrne stories, not the top 5, but just top 5 in general. So I'm going to recommend the Legends miniseries that was written by, I believe, Len Wein and drawn by John Byrne and co-plotted by him, which was an early introduction to the DC universe just after the crisis, and it introduced the new Justice League team, the new Suicide Squad, and kind of set up, and the new Wonder Woman made her first appearance there, and it kind of set up the new DC universe going forward.
Beautiful recommendation. Doc, what are you recommending this week?
You know what? Since we were talking about it, I think I brought it up a couple of times. Basically anything that Joe Kelly, Joe Casey, Steven Seagal, and Duncan Rouleau do, that's Man of Action Entertainment. They're the guys that they took over for Fabian and Lobdell on X-Men in the 90s. They did Mr. Majestic at Wildstorm, whatever happened, or what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way on Superman. They also did Ben 10, but I guess that's not everything.
Not everything's a success.
Yeah, well, I mean that's actually arguably a much larger success. But Big Hero 6, they've done a lot of really, really great stuff, and I really love. Basically, if you see Joe Kelly, Joe Casey, or Steven Seagal's name on a cover, buy it. Seriously, it's going to be.
All right, Ash, what's your recommendation this week?
Oh, I got a good one. So my upcoming for this coming up Wednesday, jump on Daredevil. If you're not on Daredevil right now, you're missing out. It is, in my opinion, the best book at Marvel. It's had a few ups and downs, pretty much only in the art department, though. They seem to have gotten that sorted out. They don't have the Chichetto doing every issue, unfortunately, but the secondary guy they got seems kind of like a poor man's Mazzucchelli, which is actually a big compliment if you understand how much I love Mazzucchelli. And that book is firing on all cylinders. They're doing some interesting things with the Kingpin, and they're doing a really cool story with Daredevil trying to find his way, and they're bringing a bunch of supervillains finally into the fold. Some of your favorite Daredevil villains, at least for me. It's building up to something big, I feel. It's exciting. It's a good drama. It's really good. So that's the only book I really want to draw attention to as far as new releases, because I think it deserves that much attention. But then also, Humble Bundle. If you guys aren't aware what Humble Bundle is, They typically deal with software and video games, and you can get a lot of stuff for super cheap, but they also do comics. And this month there's 13 days left. And I'll put the link in the chat for you guys. They have a Bloodshot Humble Bundle right now that you can get 29, I repeat, 29 trade paperbacks for as little as $15. You can, it's for charity, so you should, bid more if you put more if you can. It goes to charity. Or if you don't even want to spend that, you can get 9 trade paperbacks for $1, which includes the 2012 relaunch of Bloodshot by Dwayne Swarzynski. That's fan-freaking-tastic. As I'm sure Wes will back me up, everything that launched on that 2012 relaunch was amazing. And you get that entire run for $1. So if you don't have these books and you can't afford to really go check it out, you can get.
Is it digital or is it physical?
These are digital. They're digital. Yeah, physical would be like crazy, but it has almost the entire Valiant. Almost the entire Valiant Bloodshot run. I think actually it is the entire Valiant, all the way through Bloodshot Salvation, which is where you want to stop because it kind of went crap after that. But he also features the 4001 AD books, features the first Exo-Man of War volume from Matt Kent. You can get Armor Hunters, you can get some Ninjak books, Harbinger Wars. There's all sorts of stuff in here. Right. Check out the link. That's a super recommendation. It's a steal. And like I said, proceeds go to charity on top of that, so you can feel good.
Boom. There's a lot of good stuff in there. I will definitely vouch for Valiant Comics from 2012, 2017. The best shared, superhero universe in modern comics, in my opinion. Where was it? Oh, there's FF2. He's recommending X-47, Curse of White Knight 7, Detective Comics by Paul Dini. Were there any more recommendations in here? Man, there's a lot of chats going on. Batman, Mercy, the Cimmerian, and Daredevil. And it looks like that's about it. Pele, what are you recommending this week?
Okay, I'm going to recommend The Last God, number 5. Awesome series, just the best series I think from DC right now going forward. I love it to death, and want it just to people to buy it, and so they keep making it, and I push it on everybody. But yeah, it's great. My favorite DC book right now. And from Marvel, I'm gonna go X-Men Fantastic Four number 2 because I think that's going to an interesting place. And we're going to see Sentinels, but not from the place that you expect. So it's going to be interesting.
I agree. That was a very good one. So my recommendations, I did think X-Men number 7 was excellent. I thought that was a great comic. The Killock number 3 from IDW, which I spoke about a little bit earlier. Awesome. It's one of the best illustrated comics you'll ever see. The Livio Raimondelli's work with robots is just insane. But there was another comic I didn't really see anyone talking about that I thought was awesome. It was Jerry Duggan, who's great when he's not doing comedy, and Ron Garney on the art, and it's Fantastic Four Grim Noir. It's a Ben Grimm story, and the visuals on it are absolutely top-notch. Great story. Really, really enjoyed that one. Was shocked at how good it was. And all right, I think that's about it. We got all our comic recommendations. I want to say thank you to the entire panel for joining me today. Breen, your check's in the mail. Thank you for making time for us. The Critical Diva right here on Thinking Critical YouTube. Thank you all very much. Salamat po.